Anyone who plays Wizard101 could tell you that one of the biggest grinds in the game is pet making. You have to use a super limited resource like energy, you have to use a ton of snacks in order to make your pets, and you also are gonna fail many times along the way. And in a lot of people's opinions, the whole system needs an overhaul, and one solution that a lot of people have suggested is pet stitching. And today, I wanted to talk about my opinion on a feature like pet stitching. So the idea of stitching in general in Wizard101 right now is that you can choose the appearance of one thing, and you can choose the stats of another thing, right? You could have cool stats while also looking cool. What a lot of people want is, let's say that you already have all of the talents that you want on a pet. Why not just make it so you can transfer it over to the pet body that you want if needed? Now, there's a very real reason why pet stitching isn't already a part of the current stitching system, because unlike the appearance of gear, a pet body actually can come with cards. If I were to stitch my current raid pet, you know, my double, I don't know, my crazy Storm Ward, Stormproof raid pet, if I were to stitch this onto a pet that gave a more useful card like Empower, that's actually a big advantage that I'm getting. It's not just, I like the appearance of this elephant, but I want the stats of this. I would also be essentially getting the Empower that this elephant gives. I would be paying to not do the tedious thing of literally remaking the exact same pet. There's a lot of examples of how this could save people a lot of time, right? Basically, right? Before this meta happened, I had a Balance Ward, Death Ward, Fire Dealer, Spellproof, Armor Rigger pet on my fire. And what was really cool is I had a Dark Pact pet on, and this Dark Pact pet is really cool. It gives me 3 Dark Packs. It's actually super good in PvP. But then they came out with Burrower gear, and it became very obviously the best robe for fire. But the problem with it is that it gives you a lot of pierce. It does not give you a lot of damage. So just to deal with that one small change in the meta, what I ended up doing was I made a Frillasaur pet and used the Stompy Bronto as a mount, and I used the gear set bonus to make up for the damage that the Burrower robe didn't give. One small release of a robe made me have to put in hundreds of extra snacks to physically make the exact same pet just on a different pet body. Now, while I do think it's super cool that, like, you know, a small change in a robe could completely change up what I need for my setup this crazily, the fact of the matter is it was super tedious, and honestly, I had already made the pet. In order to actually PvP though, I had to still put in hundreds of extra snacks. I had to pop energy elixirs, Perros, double pet XP elixir. Off of that experience alone, I would say that pet stitching is a long overdue feature in Wizard101. And here's the thing, it doesn't even need to work like normal stitching. You could make it cost like, you know, 100 crowns, 200 crowns, whatever the price is. But you could also make it so that people that pet train a lot and end up with a lot of tokens, maybe they are the ones that could like maybe interact with this more. I feel like what would be a really cool concept is making it so that, yeah, maybe it requires a few crowns, but it also requires tokens that you can only get from training a lot, maybe hatch peppers that you can only get by lending your pets out a lot. You don't have to make it simply appearance-based like gear stitching. You could actually reward players that share their pets and also just interact with the pet trading system. I would go as far as to say that using these tokens as a part of a pet stitching system is something that they need to do, because honestly, the tokens that you get from pet trading are the only pity system that currently exists in Wiz for pet training. If y'all don't know how these work, every time you train a pet to, like, I want to say Mega, you get a token of the school that the pet is, and if, let's say you go to Ancient, I think what it works like, you get like an elemental or spirit token based on if it's an elemental or spirit school pet. If I'm correct, that means I made 31 mega ice pets just on my fire wizard that I'm on right now. Now, these tokens were awarded to me regardless of whether I had a pet that I wanted to get or a pet that failed, right? Like, it's blind to whether you actually got the pet you were aiming for. So surely, if I'm receiving these, regardless of whether my pet failed or not, surely there's something that, you know, like that some sort of pity system at work, right? Surely I can use these tokens for something meaningful, right? Frankly, I don't really feel like those tokens get used for anything. The only thing you can use them for is, like, let's say that you have like a Willcast pet. For example, right? Ivan's Omen. This is like a Willcast that you can summon Delusion to the top of your deck with. It's pretty cool, don't get me wrong, but this pet talent, like some few others, they come locked, and you use the pet tokens that you get from training multiple pets in order to unlock them. I've never struggled with unlocking any of these simply because of the sheer number of pets that I've trained, so it would be nice if there was another use for my pet tokens that rewarded my pet training as much. And honestly, honestly, I don't see why they're not used for pet stitching. I think the counter argument obviously is that pets cost money to make, right? It's just, let's just be honest, that's just how it works. Not only do you need elixirs if you really want to speed up the pet training process, because you know you'll run out of energy, you also need energy gear. That also costs a lot of money if you want to get the best use for your energy elixirs. Yes, you could farm for your couch potatoes. Yes, this is totally an option, but a lot of people, because they don't want to spend as much time, they actually end up spending money on couch potato seeds so that they can pet train. I'm sure that's a very common purchase. So if they added pet stitching, less pets would be made. Maybe not that many fewer pets, but maybe let's call it like maybe 5% less pets. And then maybe you could argue that 5% of the money that they make from pet training would be lost just because they added a feature like that. Well, there's a couple of arguments against that, in my opinion. One, pet stitching itself would probably cost crowns, right? I would be very surprised if it didn't. And you could make up some of the money right there. And while you wouldn't make all of it back, because, you know, I'm sure, you know, the sheer number of elixirs and snacks and all that, they probably have more monetary value than a single stitch interaction that they could ever add. What I think is more important beyond the money that they might lose is that it actually gives Wiz an incentive to add exciting new pet talents, to add a reason for you to train pets that aren't the exact same but on different pet bodies. I think it's super silly that so little has changed in the game that a pet from the Nullity raid, we're talking something that was released a year ago, the talent profile is the same as something that I literally use right now. And I don't think many people could argue that this is not a meta pet for PvP right now. I think more ambitious will casts that every school can have access to. That would be a cool thing to add to the game so that maybe you have an incentive to add, you know, to train more pets. Wizard101 releases new pets literally every month through Beast Moon. And yet, very, very often, they don't really give any exciting new talents. They're almost always reused. I feel this would be a great opportunity to maybe add some talents that maybe add some layer to the game. Maybe like new pet talents here and there that aren't game breaking, but maybe give you an incentive to be like, yo, let me change my pet a little bit. It's not like it would break any part of the game because they've already added stat caps to PvP. If there was a really broken pet talent that made you resist or pierce or damage literally too high, guess what? It would be limited anyways. So I don't see after adding these stat caps, why don't they add more fun talents at least to, like, you know, work with? So one, maybe they could add a system of pet stitching so you don't have to literally remake the same pet. And two, you have an incentive to actually make a new pet. In that ideal world, not only would players not be, you know, given the tedious task of remaking the exact thing they've already made, they would also be more vibrancy to the act of pet making itself in a way that I would argue just has not existed in a long, long time. And I haven't mentioned this at all, but let's not forget the fact that appearance is fun to play around with, and I don't see why pets can't be a bigger part of it. This might be the most important point out of them all, right? Like, let's say that I have a stitch that my pet just clashes with. It's annoying. So for all these reasons, I think pet stitching should absolutely be a part of the game, and it should involve other reagents that, you know, you get from literally pet training, so maybe the crowns cost isn't crazy for the player. I'd love to see them experiment with it, and now I'd also love to hear y'all's opinions on this. What do you guys think of the idea of pet stitching? Do you guys think it would fix some of the bigger issues with pet training itself? How would you fix the tedious pet making process in general? As always, drop a like if you enjoyed, leave a sub if you're new, and if somebody hasn't told you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. I'm reading all the comments on this video. I'm very interested. Stay awesome, y'all. And yeah.